Hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Yeah, we're just going to get started, and it's so nice to see y'all here celebrating Francie Shaw's Classics Illustrated. Yes. Presented by Small Press Traffic and Right Window at ATA. And thank you to Norma Cole, a collective member of Right Window, for helping make this happen. Thank you to my team at Small Press Traffic, in particular Theodora Walsh, who worked with Francie on the process of making this happen. She couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but she was a big part of this. And it's just very exciting. I'm personally really excited. I've seen some of this work at Francie's home in Berkeley a couple of years ago, I think, and I immediately was like, I really want this work to be shown, and I kind of can't believe that it's happening, but it's meaningful to me personally. I think it's also just really special that Francie has not had a solo show in San Francisco in about 30 years. The last show was at New Langton. At the time, it was called 80 Langton Street. We all know the lore. And in the intervening years, Francie was living on the East Coast and had numerous solo shows there. You and Bob moved back here when, 2019? 18? So we're also celebrating her first solo show here back on the West Coast. This show in particular, I'm going to let Francie talk about it. I'm going to get out of the way and let Francie talk more, and we'll do a little Q&A conversation. But it was work. It's more recent work done during the pandemic, and to me, it's really wonderful work. It's kind of whimsical and also sometimes dark and evocative and dreamy and kind of figurative, but not with any forward narrative. It's work that I've been really appreciative of, and maybe you disagree with all of those words I said, but we'll find out in just a moment. Please join me in welcoming Francie Shaw.
Thank you, Sid. I think you said everything I need to say, so that kind of covers it. The first thing I'll say is everybody asks me, what are these on? Did you get prints? What is this paper? Blah, blah, blah. It is really, truly on about a 60-year-old piece of paper from the classified Classics Illustrated in the days when they did, and they probably still do it, but they're not as good, I'm sure, because they had some really great illustrators. Count of Monte Cristo, the Swiss Family Robinson, such classics that you never wanted to read really, but you could read the comic and then you'd know what people were talking about. It was very useful that way. And I had some of those around because when Bob was working on the book that became Jack and Jill and Troy, I thought it would be fun to do some not illustrations, but some work that was somehow related to it, because before he'd sort of bounced off what I'd already done, but I thought I'd bounce off what he'd already done. And so I got some old copies of the Iliad and the Odyssey, but mostly the Iliad. And I used those with great... The comic books, yeah. I used those with great pleasure. And so here I was with everybody else in the pandemic, and I didn't want to do the same thing again. And I didn't want to do collage. But I loved the comics, and I was looking at the shapes of the page, because often, they're often 6 panels, sometimes they're more, they're often less, they're often not a regular rectangular shape, there's some that are curved and sort of like inserted into as if through a microscope or something. I don't know why they're that particular shape. But I just was noticing the patterns on a page. So I decided just to try starting from the patterns and not worrying one bit about what the story was or who the people were. And I just had so much fun doing that because I didn't have to commit myself to anything. I wasn't trying to explain something. I wasn't trying to make a story. I was just making an image where things would connect in the next box, but not logically, not any special way. And I also wanted to kind of erase the story as much as possible. So there are not very many features on faces. And as my friend Barbara said to me, why is everybody wrapped up, And that's because to make it, some of them, they were wrapped up. There were, dead people being dropped into the sea and Count of Monte Cristo and stuff. But mostly I just wanted to depersonify all the stuff in it. And I wanted to keep some drama. And I've always loved silhouettes. And so there are a lot of silhouettes in these. And I've always seen monsters in the curtains in your bedroom and, the face of Christ in the tortilla on my plate. Not really, but, people do. And that's the way I look at things all the time. I just can't help it. I see things all over the place. So I thought I'd just use that. So that's what I did, and I had such a good time, and working with the gouaches was fantastic because there's no better paint in the world. It's not good for great big canvases and stuff, but it's so dense in color because it doesn't have a lot of other stuff in it, like for oil paint or watercolors or pastels. They're pretty dense too, but it's really just the cobalt blue or whatever it is they put into that bottle and or tube you get it in. And so I was really having fun with that. Then I got into trouble when I wanted to change my mind, and it's on paper that's like 60 years old and it's only newsprint, so it's like shit paper, and you can't just rub it out or do stuff with it. But I invented my own eraser, which was a paintbrush with water on it, and you put it on the stuff you don't want there, and then you immediately sop it up with a nice clean rag, of which we have many in our house. And so, I was like set to go. I could do whatever I wanted, and that's what I did. And I didn't know what I was going to do on any one of them when I started out. I can't remember what the original image looked like. Sometimes I know what it was from because it says so on the top still. So a few times I can sort of guess if there's a lot of like fluffy cuffs or things like that. It's probably from the Count of Monte Cristo. But I didn't care about what they were from. And I just had a good time thinking about something that wasn't connected to anything else that I could think of. It wasn't the horrible state of the world or the people who were sick or, what you had to do in the house to fix the this and the that. It was just nothing but what I liked to draw or paint. And I wasn't trying to I didn't have to fill up a whole blank canvas. I started with something that I was sort of erasing, really. And that made it very tempting to erase things. So that's basically how I started on this. I've always been interested in what are called pareidolia, which are the things where you see the face of Christ in the tortilla and stuff, because ever since I was a child, I just it was all over, and I was worried about these things, and they came up from the registers, and they were in the curtains and all over the place. And they're very alive for people who see them a lot. And so I'd been working with relationships with that, and with the Iliad stuff, and the what I call Nursery Gods, which is my collection of there are 16 small paintings I did for that. But it was very different because I didn't keep the narrative, but I made them collide with each other. So there's, Athena and Aphrodite and Hera, judging the life below, and it turns out, like one of the paintings I'm thinking of, the life below is a burying ground in Jerusalem, which I did like maybe 8 years ago. So, but that has been a contentious area forever. Anyway, I like some reference to some particular real things there, and I've also done a whole series that I did. I don't know if any of you are old enough and weird enough to have paid attention to Rex Morgan, MD. But it was a daily comic in the Boston Globe, which was the paper we got. And I loved the comics, and I read them every day, but most of them were too boring, but not Rex. There was Rex and Brenda Starr and Apartment 3G and sort of soap operas. So I did a series with that, which was really fun, and because it came in the paper in Philadelphia where we lived still, so I could cut it out and do things with it. Then we stopped getting it, and there was the nurse who finally, after about 25 years of sort of being eyed by Rex, he finally proposed. And then after another 5 years, she was pregnant. Well, she was pregnant for about 3 years. And but I had to keep up on what was happening. So our friend Ron Silliman, the poet, got it in his paper. So he would tell me, like, hey, you don't know that June did whatever, But mostly it's just the reacting to the cultural quality of the storytelling life in this country and busting it up, sort of. I think that's...
You were saying that with these, you were free from stories.
I was free from stories because I was really busting them up. I mean, Rex, I started off by cutting them out, and I would white out the bubble of speech because that was it interfered too much. But it still links you to the daily comic, when you do that. And I liked that, it was fine in that, but I didn't want to do that anymore. And that helps get away from the narrative illusion. Because even if you don't know that June is saying, Rex, there's a monster in here, or whatever. Our daughter is 7 and she's about 6 feet tall, And I have to say that the illustrators for those comics, there were some really great artists who worked in those. And they had names, but they were basically anonymous. They weren't any famous people. And the way I got interested in Rex was because I noticed in the paper that they got a new artist. All of a sudden, the drawings were different, and they were very noir and really dramatic looking. And I just thought that was really fun, so I started cutting them out because I just thought they were funny. And then all of a sudden I thought, I have a lot of them, I'll do something with them. So, but I have no idea what I'll do next, but it probably won't be from comics. I don't know.
Can you talk about the tension between, say, the 6-panel template, and then some of them that is just one thing?
Yeah, I think the ones,
Many in one.
yeah, but generally I find I prefer the ones that don't turn into one image. Some of the ones that turn into one image are really great images, but I sort of feel sad that I didn't do whatever it was. I don't know. I can't think of what's in there that's like that, but there are a few that are that.
What do you mean turn into one image?
Well, that you can't see anymore where the different boxes were in the original comic page. You know, so there's just the boat and the, I don't know, I can't, yeah. You don't see how it was originally divided up. And I guess I feel that there's no sensible way you can look at what's in the world around you, really, and do anything with it. At least I can't. So I just made something else out of it because it's not so good the way it is.
I was reading an interview that you and Bob did. I think I told you this in 2009. That's on Jacket with Kristen Gallagher, and you said something that I was like, this was in 2009, so way before you started doing this work. But it sounded so resonant with this work, where you said, "I've always loved layers, changing foreground, background stuff. It's the way we see the world, really. And you always have to choose what to foreground around you, and it always changes." And it sounds like what you were trying to
Yeah.
talk about too.
Yeah, I don't know if other people experience that, but you know, I remember as a kid lying in bed and you look at the corner of the bedroom and you think, okay, what if the blue was the part coming in and the wall was going the other direction? You know, it's not always, it doesn't have to always be the way it's presented. You can see it some other way. And in fact, I was saying to Bob while I was thinking about what I would say here, I said, back in the day, we might say, well, everything is everything, but that's not true. But everything can be everything, but that's not true. Everything can be something else. So that's what I was doing, sort of. Yeah. I think that's the.
You've also done sculptural work, like actual physical, tangible work. You do a lot of found objects. I mean, this is almost like a found object, like you found these comics and you're doing them. But also like actual physical sculptural work with objects found. Do you feel like you would want to move back into something more physical, tangible? Or
Well, I might. When I first came to Berkeley, and I was totally, misplaced. I mean, I was in the right place. I wanted to be there, but it was so different. I spent like maybe 8 months or something making these things I called hose guards, which were sculptures. And it was because I was doing a lot of gardening, and the hose goes over the plants and mushes them up. And so you put these things in the ground that is sort of like a little stake that keeps the hose from going in there. But I was reading some, I don't know, some chat thing about it or something, and some woman said, watch out for sharp ends of your hose guards, because I live with my father, who's very old, and I don't want him to fall on the hose guard, so you make sure you soften it up. So I bought something like 100 old used tennis balls, which I still have many of in the basement, and I slit them and put them on top of the wooden stakes I put in the garden. And then I looked at them and I thought, I can do something better than an old tennis ball. So I made little sculptures with things I found on the street, which Berkeley is a very good place for. And and I actually started in sculpture when I started, being an artist. I majored in sculpture, and I've always loved doing clay and stuff. So, and that can be additive, So, I might do some more of that. I have to fix the ones I made though, because as some people here might know, from the ones they have, they're falling apart unless you know, take care of them all the time. Little repair work. But yeah, it's harder to make unclear illusions in 3D.
Unclear, you mean like polymorphic or something?
Yeah, I mean, a solid thing, you can see it as many different things, but not as many. And it's harder for it, it's already separate from the other things. So you can't just weave it all together. That's what's so great about flat stuff, because it's all illusion in a way. Any other questions?
We were talking about how one reason why you covered up the faces and so on was to delete. You didn't use the word delete, but the idea was delete the story.
Mm-hmm.
But you left enough there. You had left a person with a gesture, and then they'd be mummified or masked or wrapped up. So this is probably just my story that I'm bringing to you. But like the story that I got from a lot of them is I was turning to my husband and saying, they all look like they want to free themselves, like get me out of here, and like rip off that, wrapping or mask,
Mummifying or whatever,
and like the screen, like one of them looks a little bit like the Scream, so I feel like all these wrapped up, hidden beings, or I don't know what they are. To me, they wanted to break out, and you were saying that you really wanted to cover them over. So that was kind of
Yeah. Well, in terms of emotional feelings, you spend a lot of time covering them over in public. I mean, you don't break down and cry because you think about something awful that we all know about or whatever. But no, I didn't think of covering up, but I did think of shadows and bodies that could be alive or dead. Of course, if you're all wrapped up, you're not very alive. Yeah. It's not something that we put easily into our imagery, stuff about dead people. Unless, you're looking at somebody who lived long ago and it's a statue commemorating so-and-so, but then they're sitting on top of a horse with their sword out or something. So.
I don't know. It was just that I was thinking, well, you covered them up enough so that we didn't really know what was underneath, but you left them visible enough. So at least from my point of view, I wondered what was underneath.
Well, it makes them sort of dramatic. And there's a lot of drama in them that could be anything. So if you think, they need to bust out, that's fine. Other people might think that it's time for them to go in the ground or something, I don't know.
I'm curious how other people, if other
Yeah.
people had that response.
I definitely was not thinking of narrative. I just was not interested in narrative at all in doing these. So.
Do you think that the pandemic, doing them in the pandemic, figured in?
No, I think that it's because narrative can be very limiting in imagery or something, I think. I mean, narrative can be very amazing for what you can do with it that you can't do in one picture, but I didn't have a story to tell, you know.
I was thinking that you kind of made them anonymous, that they had originated in these like larger than life epic stories of adventure, like the Count of Monte Cristo or these other stories, and that you sort of made them into common people by depersonalizing them
Yeah.
as these like heroic figures. And
Yeah.
that was sort of my impression.
Yeah, it's true that it's nice to be able to change a person's position in society in the stuff you're doing. So you can take away their lordly whatever or add in some very graceful gesture or something, because we're all a lot more complicated than our so-called social role. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk about how you work with found forms, found shapes, found images? That you traced some of them into new things, or you copied and pasted, or cut out?
I didn't do any copying and pasting, but I did use stuff that was there, and there are ones that have a lot of the original stuff, more in the earlier ones. Like there's one in there that's of a man asleep in a boat, in a ship, you know, you see him lying on a bed and you can sort of tell it's a ship and stuff. That one has much more of the original image in it than some of the later ones, where I can't tell myself what was there originally. And another thing that I want to say is that gouache is just such a fantastic paint, and color in it is so intense that you could just paint over the whole thing with like 3 colors and then it would look beautiful anyway. So it was really fun because I'd never worked with gouache to such an extent before. I'd usually been working with acrylic, which is, you know, sort of boring, and oil is way too complicated and toxic, so I thought I'd try this. And I can't watercolor. I've never been a watercolor person. I don't know. It's just, you have to have an idea before you start putting the paint down. You have to know what it's going to be in the image. And I can't do that. So, anything else? I want to say, what?
Oh,
Go ahead.
maybe we were about to say the same thing.
I was just going to thank you, Sid,
Oh,
and Norma Cole, who isn't here today because it's too uncomfortable for her physically, and for Small Press Traffic for hosting this. And it was a real gift to me, and I'm really happy about it. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
and what I was going to say, which I had neglected to do earlier, is that these works are for sale, and please talk to Francie. They're very reasonably priced if you would like to purchase one, and if you want to wait a few days and think about it, feel free to contact Small Press Traffic, or you can get her email right now, or you can contact us at info@smallpresstraffic.org, and we will connect you with her and make it happen. So.
And there are 2 different things in there. There are prints, the wall that has things sort of in a grid that are bigger. Those are prints I did from the original. I had found the greatest photographer and printer and in Berkeley, whose name is Rob somebody or other. I can't remember. I'm sorry, Rob. But I just wanted to see what they looked like big, so I asked him to do some. And so I can do whatever of those, you know, so if you're interested. And I have also 2 books in there, sort of little photo books, that have other images, because I have 80 of these. So there are other things that you can be interested in or whatever. Feel free.
And this is up for the whole month, so come
Yeah.
back.
And I will be here every Saturday afternoon, and if people have other times that they would like to come in, I am very flexible. So I just want people to see it and share it with me, that's all. Well, I want them to love it, too.
We love you, Francie. Thank you.
Thank you.